It's time for the Double Stop with Brian Sword.
Welcome to the Double Stop podcast. I'm Brian Sword. This week on the show, we've got guitarist Tony MacAlpine. Now, Tony was part of the first wave of the guitar shred movement in the 1980s, and he did some really cool guitar instrumental records. He's been very active since the 80s, releasing a wide range of different material, different band projects, solo projects, just a lot of really cool guitar music. So I was really excited to get the chance to talk to him and really try to fill in the blanks and really get an understanding about his life and career. So here we go. Here is my interview with Tony MacAlpine.
All right, I was born on the East Coast of the United States. I was born in Springfield, Massachusetts. And there was 5 children in the family. And unfortunately, we lost my brother when I was 12. And he was 16. And everybody was a musician. He played drums. My other brother played guitar. Sisters danced and played all kinds of instruments. My little sister played piano. So there was music in the household. And so we were surrounded by that. And our parents were obviously into music too. So it was a very rich musical upbringing.
And the fact that your siblings played instruments, did that inspire you to pick it up as well?
Yeah, it sure did. I mean, yeah, definitely. I started at age 5 at the Springfield Conservatory of Music, and I stayed there for 12 years. And then I went on scholarship to Hart College of Music, studied with Raymond Hansen, and did a host of piano competitions and all that stuff. So I was really deeply into, and I still am, into reading classical music and playing it and stuff.
I can't even wrap my head around how early that is to audition, or did they just kind of take everybody interested at that age, or did you have to go through an audition process?
Yeah, it's a pretty common age for classical, interested students to start. It's generally around 4 or 5 years old, and a lot of times they have perfect pitch, which I did in that case. So I was humming tunes and stuff, and I didn't know how to play the piano, but I was playing them on the piano and on the violin a little bit. So
okay,
that was kind of the start of it. Yeah.
When did guitar come into the picture?
When I was 12, because my older brother played guitar, and I started listening to things like Johnny Winter and lots of different George Benson records early on, and Jean-Luc Ponty, and also classics influenced me too as a player. So things I would learn from Beethoven I would apply to the guitar. So it was just like a two-way street.
And did you do this traditional high school band thing, or were you strictly just focused on your classical training?
Yeah, well, yeah, I was in the boys madrigal singers, boys choir, and I was also a madrigal singer in the mixed choir, and I accompanied all the choruses. So I played piano in throughout high school for the classical music, which was a lot of fun.
That's great. That's so different. I'm used to hearing, I was out playing, high school parties trying to get laid, and you're there focused on training.
Well, I didn't have any problem meeting girls because girls they love piano. So once you once you serenade them with that, they're all set.
True enough.
Yeah.
So in terms of college, what was that route for you?
Well, I had my piano performance degree by the time I was 18 because I studied at the conservatory when I was 5. So, but the 12 years I was there, I was really pretty much ahead of what would be going on with a Bachelor of Music. But I stayed in college for 2 years, and then shortly after that, I got a record deal to come out on the West Coast and start playing. So I was being pulled in both directions because I was getting much better with the guitar, and and I really enjoyed classics. But you got to go where you can put butter on the bread, so to speak. So that's what I did.
Yeah. And how did that deal come by?
Yeah, I was playing a lot of different, composing a lot of different pieces for people, and also myself, and I did all these little instrumental things on a 4-track machine or something like this, and they got heard by different people, and John Sticks over at guitar player at the time heard them, and Mike Varney heard them, and Cliff Bernstein also heard it. And ultimately, that's who we ended up with. Mike Varney put out a couple of my first records, which was great, and then Cliff Bernstein put out the Maximum Security records, and with the Squawk label. So it's really pretty cool.
Yeah. So when that first record came out on Shrapnel, that
Mm-hmm.
did create quite a splash. I remember that was all over the guitar magazines at the time. And you had a heck of a rhythm section off the bat. Were you in the studio with them, or were you doing your tracks separately?
Yeah, yeah. At that time, we definitely had everybody had to do stuff together because we weren't at the digital age where it wasn't really perfected. Yeah, we did it on 2-inch Studer machines, and everybody played and tracked together. And we just cleaned it up and put the record out in 3 days. I mean, basically got it boxed and finished in 3 days. Mixed and mastered in 3 days. It was a quick record.
Wow.
Mike Varney has a habit of doing records like really fast like that. So we did a number of them over the years like that.
When I talked to Richie Kotzen, he talked about how big a deal or how helpful Steve Smith was for him in the studio. He gave him a lot of guidance on his rhythms specifically and locking in on the drummer. How did you find your experience with him?
Yeah, very similar. Very similar. Although that I did play drums too, so I had a really good understanding of rhythm, and I did write the drum parts on Edge of Insanity. So I mean, he was reading the drum charts. But Steve Smith is Steve Smith. He's ridiculous. I mean, I was listening to, listening to him. Yeah, my God, when I was like 17 or 18, I was listening to Animatic Ocean and him with Jean-Luc Ponty and all that stuff. So yeah, he's always been one of my fave drummers, and I got a chance to re-record with him, not too long back, and 2000 and something, I don't know. He played the Chromaticity record again with me, so it was so much fun. We got a chance to go up to his place up there in Marin County, where I used to live, and recorded the record with me up there. It was really great. It was a great experience.
Now, I find it interesting on Maximum Security that Mike Varney produced it. It looked like it was set for a Varney release, but then it got picked up and got released on Polygram. Did they just buy it out, or was that always the plan?
No, that was from our meeting and my meetings with Cliff Bernstein, and we recorded the record, and we were trying to get the bigger distribution with the record, which we did because we struck that deal with Cliff, and Cliff was able to put it out on Squawk, which was distributed at that time by Polygram Records. So it was a collaborative effort on all our parts.
Reading a lot of interviews and whatnot with George Lynch, who appeared on the record, I found it really interesting how much he felt it was such a big deal for him at that point in his life in Dokken that he really needed to kind of do some outside projects. How did that collaboration come by?
Yeah, I'd been to, I don't know how many Dokken concerts with my girlfriend at the time, and I would go to all these concerts and see, I think at that time they were open for Aerosmith or something like this. And, we'd go to all these shows, and George and I were friends, and my keyboard player at that time, Mark Robertson, he's very good friends with Jeff Pilson. So it was a big circle. So everybody kind of knew each other. And the talk about the playing hadn't really come about until after a while, after I had finished this record, and I wrote this song, Tears of Sahara, and I mentioned to Cliff it would be great to have George on the record. And he ran it by George, and George was like, yeah, I'd love to do it. And showed up, and, up in San Francisco where I lived, and, just like smoked. And it was a great experience. He played on both Vision and Tears of Sahara.
Did that make a big difference in the marketing, or was it just something? It was just great to have your friend on the record.
Well, yeah, I had a lot of wonderful friends on there. I had Jeff Watson on there, just completely ripped up, the King's Cup, and and Otmar Noor was on there, and it's funny the Journey circle because Dean Castronova played drums, and he's in Journey now. So and prior to that, Steve Smith had done it. So and we wouldn't have known that was going to happen over before. So yeah, and all these guys, still friends today, just did a wonderful job and played, and and having their names on the record, of course, always helps. The interest to the record buying public, because they love to hear the people that they admire in different types of musical situations, and that's what occurred there.
Now that style of your early classically influenced shred, you were very early on that wave. How did you develop your style, and where did that come from?
Well, I mean, I like all types of music genres, and I've worked and still do work in all of those different, genres, and I keep myself busy with that. And at that time, I really wanted to do something that was more, fusion based. But the market, was wide open for, guys that were taking that style of music. You know, I always say that, you can always tell, the roots of, where all these players came from, because I used to love to listen to the Al Di Meola records. I loved them all. I used to play them all in a little cover band, and Land of the Midnight Sun and all that stuff. And I was into all that stuff, and it's pretty reflective in the early stuff that I did, and that I was able to really just I think bring more of a down to earth rock feel to it, and just straighten up the grooves, and not really messing around with odd meter things like that, just keeping it very, very heavy and forward. And I think that was a craze, and that was a movement that was going on in that whole shrapnel thing at the time, because all those guys really worked with each other. I worked with Paul Gilbert early on Joey DeFoyer records when I produced that record for Mike, and then I worked with Vinnie Moore on so many of his records, and played keyboards for him live in different situations. We just did a thing in New Zealand together, and which we have never done before. I've never really played live with him on keyboard, so and guitar, so that was a lot of fun. And just we were all really involved in the same movement. I think really just it was something different. Nobody really knew what it was, but it was an intense thing, And Yngwie was there with the Steeler that stuff with Mike, and it's really pretty cool. And everybody found their own direction and their own niche, and at that time, people thought really that everybody, was similar and everybody sounded the same. But it's just vast differences between, Paul Gilbert and David Chastain and Vinnie Moore and myself and Greg Howe and all these players, and everybody's got really their own unique thing, and that's what really made it interesting. It's nice to see where it all came about today.
Absolutely, and it was such a new thing that I think it took a while for people to see the differences. Yes,
it did. It did, because I was concentrating really solely on just instrumentals, and Paul Gilbert was in Racer X and was just writing crazy instrumentals at the time, and and Vinny was he's Vinny, just Mr. Smooth, just really introspective music, and Greg Howe was very funky, so everybody had their own everything. I did some live shows with David Chastain and I think Vinny in Japan, with DiMarzio, a few, years early on in the 80s. So it was, we were bringing it to a live format too. So it was a lot of fun, really. It was. It's pretty cool.
It sounds like it was very friendly and collaborative, where from the outside, it felt competitive, but it seems like it really wasn't that way.
No, it wasn't that way at all, because Shrapnel was, Mike was, popping these records out like Pop-Tarts, and everybody was really working on, if you look at the history of all those records, there's a common thread where a lot of people have worked on the same records, it's a lot of the same musicians, and, we were all after the same thing, and that was just really, trying to make some music that would last for some decades. And, luckily enough, it occurred, it happened, and some of these guys they've contributed so much to that movement of what these younger players play like today. I have a guitar player in my band now that's a girl. She's from Israel, very young girl, 24, and she used to listen to those records when she was like crawling around in pajamas, So it's kind of amazing when you think about it.
Doesn't that make you feel old, eh?
Oh, I don't mind that. I got a large family, and yeah, it's all good.
It was also great in that era because there was so much support within guitar magazines and what. It may be pre-internet, but there's definitely lots of cover space made for shrapnel artists.
Oh yeah, that's true. Back when people knew how to read, people don't read anymore. They, everything is presented to them on a digital media device. So things have changed. But the impact that movement had around the world. I mean, we saw it when we began to tour, and I saw it. To this day, I still see it. I'm still going out doing tribute records of my own stuff. Like I'll dedicate a show to a whole entire record. So it's pretty cool being able to do that.
Yeah, that's a new thing a lot of artists are doing, and from the fan perspective, it's freaking great. It's really fun for the fans to go experience that.
Yeah, it is. It really is. It's pretty cool. It's a lot of work you have to do to prepare it, but and you have to go back and relearn these things that you did. and because we're all in different musical places now. But yeah,
Sure.
it's really a hell of a lot of fun, yeah, to do, and you can see how much they really dig it.
I saw the Winger recently, and they did their first record, and they're kind of cracking jokes about how in the studio they never intended to even play some of that stuff. They knew when they went on tour they wouldn't play the stuff, so and then they had to kind of figure out a way to do it, and it was kind of comical.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, Eddie Van Halen used to always say, never record anything in the studio that you can't do live. Just, and I always used to try to borrow from that. And but yeah, there's a big difference between Edge of Insanity and Maximum Security in terms of guitar tracking, because we really definitely need two guitars with so much of this stuff. But it's really evident with the solos and stuff in Maximum Security.
Now, with Eyes of the World, you changed things up a little bit, and I think you went a bit more for a band format, right?
Right, right, right.
What led you to change that path, which is not uncommon for a lot of the shrapnel shredders, but what made you decide you want to do more of a band format?
Well, I mean, we were on Polygram, we were on Squawk and Polygram, and at that time, and they really wanted something commercial that they could move at the time. But the record came out in an odd part of the decade, and anything that comes out like kind of late in the decade usually has a tough time, and people are pretty much cemented in what they're hearing from you. So it's hard for them to really, want to stretch their ear in a different direction. And although the record was a lot of fun, we had fun touring it. It just was hard for people to put an identity with that music with me. But by certain dots, it was pretty common for me to be involved in that style of stuff. I'd been doing that with a lot of different artists, but I think when people think of a certain brand, they just that's what they want to put their fingers on. It was much easier in terms of like the days of Planet X to be able to put this really progressive, odd meter music out than it was to try to put something commercial out, which was very viable at that time and happening. But with me, they wanted me to be, what they perceive me to be, and that's cool. I enjoy making the people making their expectations something that they can reach. When they have a desire of hearing something, it's good to know that when we go into the studio and write this stuff, it's they come back when they meet you and they're like, wow, this is just amazing. It's just what I imagined. It's just like a killer record, and that's what you're doing it for, really, more of anything. With the pop records, it was very different, and it was very difficult to do because I was working with a singer, and I had done that too a little bit with Project Driver, but I think the Project Driver
That's
was
right, yeah.
it was more of a collaborative, heavier type of thing, and this was more of a pop thing. But and we didn't really have a band at the time that we did it, so we had we had Randy Jackson, from American Idol fame. He was playing bass on the record, and John Alderetti was playing, and
That was another Journey connection with him too. With
exactly, yeah, exactly. Well, I've known those guys for so long. When I used to live in San Rafael, so I was friends with Neil and all those guys for going way back, and did some work with Steve Perry on some of that solo stuff. But nothing ever came of it. But yeah, but nothing really developed on wax. But yeah, that's really how it goes. It was a fun period putting that music together, but people wanted to hear Maximum Security. So
I guess it's tough because some people really lament when they're kind of forced into a box, but sometimes you love the box, so you're okay with it. That's how the vibe I get from you about it.
oh yeah, it's been good to me. I can't complain. That a lot of people don't go to work doing at least what it is that they would think that they went to school for and wanted to do, and so I can't really I can't complain about that. But it happens to everybody. It happens to everybody that does anything, media related, like actors, and they expect to see Charles Bronson playing a tough guy. They don't want to see him in a love story. So it's the kind of thing that goes on. Yeah.
And that's I guess it was a couple years later, but it's still around the same time that Steve Vai did his Sex and Religion record, which I think had a similar reaction where people weren't quite prepared for it, even though I think it's aged really well, and people can kind of appreciate it perhaps a little bit later. But it was an era, yeah.
Yeah, it was an error, but I think those weird stumblings that we go through, like of direction, they help us determine. I think it also gives us strength. It gives our whatever we're trying to do artistically. It gives us some type of character because we kind of writing gets better, and you might have had a taste of this and a bad taste of that, and you really just learn different things from all those experiences.
So when you moved on, I think you probably got one more record in before grunge hit and changed the landscape a little bit. But you were back on Shrapnel, and you went back to more traditional shred of what people expected from you, right? With Freedom to Fly.
Yeah, with Freedom to Fly, yeah, and I had a trio, and we were getting more into this. Yeah, that grunge period was coming about, and we didn't really want to get involved too much in that thing. But what we did was we really just got a trio together, and I had the format of working with a trio with Larry and Mike, and that was fun. That was pretty cool. And it was a different thing because although Edge of Insanity was a trio, and Maximum Security was more or less a two guitar player record. This was really the fundamental writing was really based on the trio. But, we had songs like Box Office Poison, which were no problem for me to play live because I'd play keyboards and guitar parts live in this type of thing, and without any missing parts. So that was that opened another door, and the beats were there's more of an emphasis with the double bass, and Larry was a funkier bass player and not really a soloist. So the grooves were much different, and it led for a different sound. It was although I didn't really like the way the record sounded, mix wise, but yeah, it was went down a different road, that's for sure.
And how was it? How did the fans respond to it?
Yeah, it was a pretty cool record. It was really cool. However, I was really at this point in time getting involved in the beginnings of what would be the progressive days like that were around the corner, and the stuff that I would start to do later with the other bands, and which were Planet X and working with Virgil and all that, which was early on, but we took us a while to really get something together that was a band project. And then of course, it developed from the further records that I did because I started getting into more complex writing, and I wanted to spend more time with that. That's what was evident on, Premonition and Evolution. I wanted to utilize keyboards in a different way, and not so much as backing tracks and pads, but also as important melodic instrument that really shaped what the songs were like songs like The Sage and these type of things, and that's what I was able to do with those two records.
And how much writing did you do with the keyboard, or was it always simply a supporting instrument?
Well, I mean, I think everything I play, I write on keyboards, pretty much everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I hear it in my head, and it's just easy just to sit down and just play an acoustic piano than it is to messing around, plugging in a guitar and doing all that other stuff. Just like, you hear it, and then you can imagine what this is going to be and that's going to be. And it's because it's a percussive instrument, you can understand what's going on rhythmically pretty well. And, it's very orchestral. It's a little hard to play guitar the same exact way. So I do find myself always at the piano when I'm creating.
Now, tell me how Planet X came together.
Well, that was, Derek came out with a record, and then he really wanted to assemble these musicians that were, able to take a lot of the music and put it on a different level and be able to play it live in a way that it was presented in a heavy, heavy context. And Virgil is a very unique drummer, Mr. Donati plays in styles and figures, and that most people just don't do that. And from that, everybody wrote in that outfit. Everybody was collaborative, and we all got together and wrote so much stuff together, or we would write as a band, or we would just have ideas and bring them together, and then they would change about. And Derek was really interested in coming up with a shock the world kind of. After his days of Dream Theater, he really wanted to put something together that was, to him, just on fire, and not very common. He didn't want anything to be common, so there's a lot of new harmonies and in the Planet X stuff, there's a lot of tensions, chord tensions. There's a lot of odd meter. There's a lot of metric modulation going on, and these are kind of things that I didn't hear in Return to Forever and those kind of things. And so it was that was a rather unique period. That's for sure.
And did you guys tour that very much?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we sure did. We did a lot of playing. We did a lot of stuff in Europe and in Eastern Europe and in Japan, of course, and it carved a nice niche. People came out that really were fans of Virgil and myself and Derek and in that type of music. We had Tom Kennedy playing bass on some things, and Billy Sheehan did some stuff. Just was rather Rick Farabaci played, and a lot of guys came into that were unique players. Philip Bino played bass on a lot of the tours, and he's playing with Steve these days. So a lot of veterans played, and were able to embrace the music, and just it wasn't the type of music that featured any one of us. It was just a sound. That's what we really liked. It wasn't a drummer's record or a guitarist record by any means, or a keyboardist record. It was just a sound.
When you're taking music that amongst the masses could not be any more uncool,
Yeah,
and you really give it all you got, but there's always a niche that wants something different. This almost becomes the real alternative music at a certain point.
this is true.
How hungry were people for it?
Well, I mean, we'll put it to you like this. It definitely was woman repellent music. That's what we always used to say. I can't dance to that, and I don't hear the chords, and the singer's not loud enough. Well, it's instrumental, things like that. So, it didn't have that going for it. But, the music, the music players, the actual guitar players and the instrumentalists, those players, women too, loved it. They loved it. The masses just, really would always want to hear you play something that's more in 4/4 and, blues related, which is fun too.
There was a period there where a lot of guitar players were playing in different support acts. And you know what? It still happens. Like right now, Nuno's playing with Rihanna. Back then, in the 90s at least, you had Greg Howe playing with NSYNC. And, all kinds of things. And you did a different twist, which I found really interesting, is that you started playing with Steve Vai. What led you to decide that you were going to take that gig and tour and support him?
Well, I mean, I've been playing in lots of records of people's different guitar players. Vinnie Moore, like I, did the Mind's Eye record and other records, other tribute records with Mike Varney, and played with Paul Gilbert and just a lot of these guys. And it just was another collaboration, really, where I, was able to do something again with keyboards, which I love to do, and which is really what he needed. So he called me one day and just said that he needed a keyboard player that could play a little guitar too. And I was like, yeah, it'd be fun. Got Dave Weiner in the band, and and we went out. We were called the Parade. We had Billy Sheehan and Virgil Nadi, on drums, and it was just an incredible lineup.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it was a really high energy kind of thing, and we did that for a few years, and everybody still did their own stuff, but we were doing that too, and and Steve's just a wonderful friend, great player, great, very unique player, one of my favorite players, and being able to work with all of these guys over the years, like Joe, and you get to see and you get to get a good picture of things that will help you with solutions with whatever you're trying to do musically, and those G3 tours have brought the music to such a forefront for people that really admire that stuff, that was a great time. It was a lot of fun, to be involved in that.
It was really exciting, I think, from the fan perspective again, to go always back to the fan perspective, in that you've got Billy Sheehan and Steve Vai back playing together, which is exciting for a lot of fans. But then again, the rest of the players are all so well known and well respected that that's a real interesting musical experience for fans to go to see it when they go see a show.
Oh yeah, yes, it did very well. We did that live in the Astoria DVD, and it was like a record seller thing, We all got these huge plaques and these cool rings, and did really well with that record. It was a lot of fun, and yeah, all the guys worked very hard, and from then on, we just kept on exploring and going into different directions, I also have a jazz band called Cab with Bunny Brunell, and we had Steve come and do some shows with us, and that thing was a lot of fun, So he would sit in with some shows and play with us in that, and which was pretty amazing. We got Steve Vai, Patrice Rashawn, and Bunny Brunell, and
Awesome.
Dennis Chambers on drums, and it was just crazy.
And then Ring of Fire, what was that project?
Well, that was a band that Mark Bowles, the singer that sang with Yngwie, he created some music and that he wanted to put out, and he, was working with Vitaly Caprice, the keyboard player, and it was a band. We didn't really do anything live. We did like 3 shows, I think, probably at best. But because everybody was so busy doing other stuff, and I was really, really busy doing my other instrumental stuff and working with Planet X at the time that we did those things. So it was, and Planet X was working all the time. So it was difficult for me to do too much stuff. But it was, I would say, more, of the style of music that Mark was associated with Yngwie, but just different players and more on a collaborative effort and instead of just a solo vision. So, and it really was his solo records basically that came to life, and as was similar with Derek with their Planet X. It was started from the birth of his solo records. That's how it was with Ring of Fire. Came about because basically it was a Mark Bowles solo project.
When did the 8-string guitar come into play?
Well, I don't know the history of it, but I've been using it in studios for years, and to create a fullness on the records and the chords and some of the lines to create. It's much easier to play that guitar than to tune down a guitar,
Oh, sure.
So but I don't find that it's that useful for me of an instrument in all situations because it gets so low. It's it's infringing on the bass properties. It gets into the bass player's neighborhood, and that's not really something that my music's really not written with in that format because I really want the guitars to be of a more higher approach and the keyboards to fill in the middle parts and the other rhythm guitar player and the other soloists that we have to do other things. So, and all these players that we have are so they're so talented. They play so well, but I find that the 8-string guitar kind of limits it limits sonically some of the things that I can do. I can play it just like any other guitar, but then the possibilities of what the thing can do are to create these low subharmonic tones. Mm-hmm. And that's not really something that I really need to do live because I have bass players and other guitar players that can do that. So I play it just very limitedly live. I might use it on 2 or 3 songs or something like this. And sometimes I use it on ballads and things like that, But I primarily play 7 strings.
In 2011, you released a new record, self-titled, first record as a solo record for the first time in 10 years or so. Why self-titled, and what led you back to doing the solo instrumental records?
Well, I've done so many records. I really didn't have too much to say, Just been doing it a long time, and it was fun to go out and Virgil and I and Bunny Brunell, we went out and did a pop gig with a French superstar for a couple of years, and we lived in Paris and did that, and we just just explored different things. Yeah, we were playing 25,000 seaters a night. He sold out 18 shows in Bercy, stadiums and in the Bercy Stadium in Paris, and it was just amazing. It was a lot of fun to do something completely different, where all they needed me to do was go out there and play these solos, and and there's 3 guitar players and background singers and 2 drummers, and it's just, it was a great thing. And doing that, in the meantime, in the downtime when we would have, he could only do, Michel Polnareff could only do 2 or 3 shows a week, because the show was so big, and it took so long for him to set the show up. So while I was sitting there in these nice hotels and hanging out and drinking this great these champagne and beer and just getting fatter, I decided, you know what, I think I want to start writing again. So I started writing, and I started writing into my computer, and I have a cool little multiple track player that I use, and just came up with a lot of cool different ideas, and things started to develop.
It's interesting that jumping in and doing a project unlike anything you've ever done re-inspired some creativity to go back and do what you're known for.
Well, yeah, I mean, you always have to do stuff that you have to recharge your batteries. I mean, you can't really just keep doing the same thing over and over again. Some can, but I mean, for me, yeah, there's I play keyboards, as you know, and I play so many different styles of music. So, being involved in a pop thing like that was a lot of fun for me. And to be able to do that, just created more of a yearning for me to write some more on guitar stuff. And I felt like there was enough time away that I could come back at it again and do something pretty heavy that I enjoyed.
And how was the response when you returned?
Oh, it was great. Yeah, it was really killer. It's still going on. People are clamoring for another record, and we're busy writing it, and we're finished with it now. So it's been a cool record. This newest record is called Concrete Gardens, and it has Jeff Loomis, my good friend, playing on it. And
very cool.
We just recently came back from Northern California, where we recorded the whole record live in EMG TV, and that had Neely Brosh, this wonderful guitar player, 24-year-old on it, and myself and Achilles Priester, a great Brazilian drummer. He played the entire record, and he did my last tours of Europe and South America. And Jeff Loomis was a guest on it, and Pete Griffin played bass from Zappa Meets Zappas and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. So it just was really a lot of fun to actually go out and record live a record that we really didn't know that well. So because we never really played it live, and we're looking forward to the record to come out pretty soon. It's going to be mixed fairly soon by Ulrich Wild, who did my last record. And looking forward for that thing coming out. It's a very heavy, progressive record, which it's doing a lot of different challenging things in the ways of construction and what's happening with the guitars and the melody lines and the rhythms.
It can't be that common for such complex music to be recorded live in the studio.
It was difficult. Because we had limited rehearsal, and but because Pete played the record and Achilles played on the record, it made it really putting their thing together in a live atmosphere a lot easier. Had we used other players, it might have been more difficult. But everybody was really pretty much familiar, with the tunes. We could have probably used more time with the rehearsing, but it's always kind of fun to be on the edge.
And what made you decide to record that way in the first place?
Well, I play EMG products. I used those pickups, and their pickups are amazing, and that company is just really outstanding. And the talk was, came about me just going up and doing a couple of things, like the backing tracks, which I don't like to do. I just don't care for it at all. Generally when I do clinics, I like to use a real band. There's just something sterile about playing to a machine that doesn't work for me. So I basically said, why don't we try, the whole album? And they were like, yeah, that'd be great. That'd be amazing. And it came about that way. And thus it's been finished.
And when does the new record come out?
Well, we're looking at the next couple of months. We're going to hit heavy and probably have everything mixed in the next couple of months, or maybe perhaps earlier, or around 2 or 3 months from now. I think the record will be ready to hit the cell phones.
Yeah. And how do you feel about that? How do you feel about the fact that everybody's listening to the music on cell phones these days?
I think it's pretty cool. I mean, I don't like CDs. I think I can't wait for the fact when everybody's just going to be. It's just all going to be digital downloads. I mean, I don't like what CDs do to the trunk of my car, and it just seems like I always make copies of CDs if they're mine, and to put them on another medium to listen to. So I just think it makes sense. It's easier, and we live in this age where people want to hear things quickly and without any delay, and it's just a great idea. I mean, where we're at right now with this stuff is it's kind of essential with what we're all trying to do anyway, and then that's bring the music into people's hands, and I think everybody's really holding on to something in their hand with headphones, and they can listen to the stuff constantly and remark on it, like in Twitter, and give you all kinds of instant feedback, and which we really couldn't do back then, but we can do now. And we always used to say, well, how different would these records have been if we, I remember working with Steve Fontiano, and I did on a lot of different projects outside of my own, wonderful engineer. And, we worked together where I would produce some stuff and he would engineer it. And I remember when the Pro Tools stuff was coming about, and he was like, "Oh, there's no way no way I'm going to mix anything in a box, real machines for me." And now, you just really don't see anybody anywhere with, you don't see any record budgets that can afford, $150, 2-inch tape. It just doesn't exist anymore,
That's true.
So it's kind of at the point where it's Pro Tools, Logic, or whatever, right away, or nothing.
And what kind of touring plans are you looking to do for this record?
We have some stuff coming up here in August. We're going to hit the road in August and play some various shows in California, and then we're going to do the Guitars Under the Stars festival, which is August 8th, 9th, and 10th, and we're playing on August 9th there, and it's a cool festival with a lot of different players playing, and it's an outdoor thing, so it should be a lot of fun. We're going to play all around the California and closer to New Mexico area, and then October we hit the states and play an entire United States run, and farther after that we're going to go back to South America and and in Spain and different places and play over in Europe.
That's cool.
So yeah, I'm always touring. I'm always pretty busy, and I enjoy that, bringing the music to the people. So we're looking forward to getting that going.
A couple years ago, you did a project with Mike Portnoy, didn't you, and Billy Sheehan?
Yeah, PSMS, right.
Tell me about that, because that's crazy lineup.
Yeah, that was fun. We got together and did a couple of things. It came about because, Derek wanted to assemble another one of those crazy bands, and he did. And, all of us are not strangers to each other. We've known each other for so long. As you know, Billy played my first record, and I've done all those tours with Billy. And I was in a band with Billy called Devil Slingshot that a lot of people don't really know about. With Derek, with Virgil and myself, and Billy. And Derek wanted to put something together with, and Mike wanted to do something with Derek, and so the two got together, and Billy and I were mentioned, and we just all got together and played as a guest on one of Mike's drum videos, and that was the first thing we ever did. And when we did that, it was sort of like a live thing for all of us to see how we felt about everything. And we had such a great time doing that it just became a band. And we plan to do some more stuff in the future too when we all have time. And we'd like to record some stuff too, which we've not done. And the only drawback is that we haven't done that. We've basically our live show consisted of us playing the material that we've all written for our own associated acts or a solo career. So I've done like 3 of my instrumentals, and Billy's done some of his with the different bands that he's been in, and Derek the same. And Mike, we play some Dream Theater stuff that he's obviously written with the band. So that's where we've been, and we'd like to somehow change it into something a little different, but it's going to take quite a bit of time, as you well know, to develop that. And they're busy with their winery dogs, and it's hopefully we'll find the time to do that, and everybody will get together and write something pretty cool and maybe record it.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, it'd be a lot of fun.
It's interesting when you get a lineup like that. It opens a lot of doors because, again, from a fan perspective, that kind of lineup, it can go a long way.
Oh yeah, we've and we did a lot of crazy stuff already. We played all around the globe in about a month's time. We basically just flew everywhere we went. We didn't stay in any hotels. We just each day we were at the airport going to a different city in a different country, and it was just wild, and that kind of was something that I wouldn't want to do again. not in that way. right? But yeah, it was a lot of fun to actually play with Mike, and then we all got together and did the Prague Rock Festival, which was voted the #1 Prague festival of of all of the last year. So that was pretty killer, and that was a cruise. That was a 4-day cruise, and yeah, we played there. PSMS played there, and it was just unbelievable. It was just great, and we had a lot of fun. Huge turnouts for this music on the water stuff. That was the first time I've ever done it, so it was new to me. So I had never done anything like that before, but I had a blast doing it.
Yeah, I've gone on a couple of those, and they're a riot. They're a lot of fun.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Especially for the artists who want to interact with the fans, because there's no barrier there.
Oh, there isn't, and it was great. I mean, you could have. They had an upper floor. We could have just everybody could have just hung out in obscurity until they had to play. But I just had a great time, just eating in the regular cafeterias and hanging out with everybody, and just there's so much excitement in all these music lovers' eyes. They just really have a chance to come out and see all these guys play, and there were so many cool bands on that bill. And yeah, I think that was the last thing we did, and we plan to do some other stuff in the future.
Besides this new record, any other projects you got cooking up?
Besides that, no, not yet. There's some things in the development, but not worth speaking about yet. But yeah, my focus right now is on getting the band on the road here very shortly and getting this new record out, which is called Concrete Garden. So looking forward to that.
Well, I wish you luck, and thanks for taking the time to be on the show.
Brian, it's wonderful talking with you, and it's a great interview. I really enjoyed it, and hope to see you one of these days pretty soon.
And there it is, a conversation with Tony MacAlpine. Go to TonyMacAlpine.com to check out for tour dates to see if he's coming to your area. As always, you can follow us on Twitter at The Double Stop. We're on Facebook. Website is TheDoubleStop.com. Make sure you go to iTunes and subscribe to the show so you don't miss any episodes. We'll see you next time.